have Brian Matthews, who released this video about 5 months ago, I believe, and kind of set the world on, at least in my world. I didn't see this until too late. I was like, wow, he's doing something big. I was like, that is awesome. So a lot of people probably haven't seen this, but if you have, then you know it's all about. But for those that don't, we're going to be talking about everything X-Class and SuperClass, Freedom Class, all the classes, basically giant drone racing. And so what Brian's been doing with these SuperClass drones is really epic, and I cannot wait to hear what he has to say about them. Also coming up on the show, ooh, that crash was awesome. We have to see that again. Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. Wait. Yeah, and so that's the cool thing. His frame is so beefy, it just doesn't care. That is just, yeah, that's a sexy machine. So we're going to see more about that, find out all the awesome details coming up. And then a bit of something coming up for next week in the future. AirDog kind of reached out to the show, and they want us to do kind of like a demo / teaser for their brand new action drone coming out. Really kind of cool. I'm really interested in it. I haven't heard about it before. I just kind of like comparing drones. I think I've flown everything from a Mavic to an Inspire. I've flown Solo, an Iris. Let's see, the Parrot Bebop. I found basically most of the consumer main drones out there. So I'm really excited to check this out. It kind of has like a wrist thing that you attach to it so you can control the drone remotely from the wrist. I am really interested to check that out. So that's coming up. And then in other drone news, we have Intel getting into the drone market with their giant octocopter. Yeah, so this thing is really cool, and this is maybe not strictly like giant drone racing, but I wanted to include it because Intel is getting into the drone game, and that is another player that might be interested in getting into giant drone racing, especially if they're working on giant drones. So the Intel's got a brand new Falcon 8 Plus out. It is a pretty sexy beast. So yeah, it's pretty awesome. And I just want to say thank you all in chat for jumping out and saying something. And if you want to chat more, check out the Dronelicious Show group in Facebook. It's kind of like a private group. I'll have the show notes later. But you can find fantastic memes from the show, questions, highlights.
All sorts of internal jokes, everything we have on the show.
Yeah, a lot of fun stuff. And the Dronelicious Facebook page, if you haven't liked that, please go ahead and like that. And I also want to thank you all that have liked it. Holy crap, we have over 100 likes in the first couple days. And that is really impressive. I haven't really been advertising it much, and a lot of people have kind of been coming in, sharing the posts. I know partly it's because we're having a giveaway, but the giveaway is really just extra deliciousness on top of everything else. So yeah, and then the website, check out everything on the website is now updated, and we are now on iTunes. So if you want to listen on iTunes, check that out. You can find us on Dronelicious Show on iTunes. So yeah, that's pretty epic. And then coming up on Sunday, I will be on the FPV Raw podcast with Ruben of Sweep Wings. If you don't know Ruben is this awesome designer of giant racing wings. And he's responsible for the Juggernaut and the Behemoth, some of the biggest wings on the market that you can buy. And he's actually going to be on our show next week, and we're doing a bit of a cross promotion. So yeah, if you want to listen to me talk about basically everything that I wouldn't talk about on this show and kind of get personal and kind of get funky and weird gaming stuff, check out the FPV Raw podcast. It was a lot of fun. And I want to say thanks to Ruben and Sweep Wings RC for bringing me on. Oh, cool. That's awesome. I love putting together 500, been beating a Blade Nano. That's pretty cool. So, yeah,
another news coming up is, well, as you said, Angela had to quit today because she had something to do, some meetings. But well, she'll be hosting the Latin American MotoGP Championship that is going to be in Colombia.
Oh, right on.
Medellin, for being specific. So we have her next week's. So when she tells us about this sweet news about Latin American.
See, that's the thing. She's going to even have more to talk about next week, because we were going to talk about like the first FPV racing team that was all female that me and her were kind of putting together. And that was going to be like huge news. And I was really excited to share that with everybody. But yeah, still shared it with everybody. So yeah, Angela and I are working on that. And we're working on some other stuff. So that's a lot of fun. And yeah, so one last thing, I want to give a shout out to Aerial Sports League for being on the show last week and giving us a Hero 180 frame to give away. I think Santiago has a few details about that, and we're going to be announcing the winner of this frame. So probably the thing everyone's been waiting for, at least a lot of people, is right now coming up. So Santiago, please tell us a little bit more about this frame.
Okay, so saw yesterday, Tuesday, we had this amazing Aerial Sports League frame that is called the Hero 180. They designed it and they manufactured this frame. It's made out of polycarbonate, so it's really tough. It's, as I said, 180 millimeters. And, this is just like a clear frame, so you can see all the electronics inside of it. It's super easy to fix. Also, it's super easy to, how do I say it, like, it's waterproof, kind of waterproof, because all the components are inside the canopy. So, you get a really tough frame, really light frame also. It weighs 73 grams. And, there are like two types of heroes. There are the first one, which is the 180, and there is the second one, which is 540, I think. And you can get them at Diaton USA, get FPV Aces, and UKDR Direct. It's about almost like, let me see, like $49. Well, it is estimated to be back in stock, but it's a super cool frame. So you must check it out.
And thank you, Santiago. I think I was about to like die from holding my breath. Oh my God. Okay, so yeah, it's a really awesome frame, and I'm really excited that we were able to do a giveaway on the first show. Next week, we'll have yet another awesome giveaway, so stay tuned for that. And yeah, so the winner. So I just want to say a big thank you to everyone that tuned in live to basically watch the show. And yeah, so the winner is Tor Odinson. He's been saying a lot in chat.
Way.
And he's liked the show, he's followed, he's done all those amazing things he had to do to win. So thank you, Tor Odinson, for being an awesome fan and tuning into the show live and all that awesome stuff. So
he just commented on the chat, Twitch chat.
Yeah, no, I even saw him there. So I actually had him picked out before the show, and so it was really awesome to see him tune in and actually start chatting around. That was really, really cool. So thank you, Taurus, and I'm gonna contact you on Twitch to, like, I seriously don't know who they really are. I have no idea. It wasn't a payoff. It wasn't a payoff. So I'm gonna make sure I contact you on Twitch. I'll get your Facebook info, and then I'll make sure that it's shipped out to you ASAP. So yeah, I can't shut you up now. Yeah, so tune in next week. We'll be announcing the giveaway probably Monday and start kind of getting more interest for the show going for Tuesday. And yeah, Scrat, you were very close. You almost got that. So thank you for turning in. Yeah. So
Zoe, after Tuesday's show, we had like a hero ASL guy who talked to us because he just bought a frame.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I totally forgot about that. So Yeah, so from the show, Barry watched the show and he loved the frame and everything we were showing off about it. And he actually contacted me and said, "Hey, I bought the frame from the show. I'm really excited about it." And I just want to say thank you, Barry, for supporting ASL and the show and doing all that cool stuff and just interacting in general. I love hearing your feedback. I love seeing the Twitch chat go. I love seeing all the comments we get after the show and all that fun stuff. So thank you so much. Yeah, so going forward, I'm trying to get back on my episode guide and get back to where I need to go. Yeah, I think we have done everything we need to do. So, getting
So,
into the main chat, we have our main guest, Brian Matthew. He is the proprietor of SuperClass Drone Racing, something that I have actually kind of become a fan of. He's done some really, really cool work. He has some amazing stories. He's got some amazing drones that he's done some custom work on that I'm actually really excited to hear about. So, Brian, please tell us hello and a little bit about yourself.
Well, hey, Zoe, thanks for having me on the show today. I know it was short notice, but if I can oblige, I will. We're here in St. Louis, Missouri. The weather is finally giving us a break. We had a long winter and we missed out on a lot of great stuff from January all the way through February into March. We had a lot of snow and rain and everything, but we are back in business. The weather is beautiful and we are ready to do some test flying on these this weekend.
Right on. So, yeah, actually, I kind of like took up the screen space by accident, but behind my face on
Okay.
Twitch chat are two giant 700 millimeter, 770. What's the scale of
Yeah,
them?
the Scorpion, the white and blue one over here, is 700 millimeter
Aha.
span, motor to motor, and the Viper there is 770 millimeters motor to motor.
Wow. Okay. So I just deleted myself on Twitch chat so we could see those big, awesome drones behind you. So what kind of props and motors, or at least, are you running that publicly on the current setups that you have? I'm just super curious. I'm going to be
Well,
talking about mine, and I just kind of want you to show me
I understand.
yours.
Well, we're running the master air screw props on the tri blades. It's pretty evident with the symbol on the blades. Anybody who's seen some of the up close shots will know that they're the master air screw. The frames were originally built for 16-inch props. We ended up going with the 14s. They're a little bit easier to get a hold of. And, in development stages, you kind of have to go with what's accessible. It may or may not be a price issue, but if it's not available and it's constantly out of stock, it's just not going to get you anywhere when it comes to developing and testing.
Yeah, and it's
So those are the
actually
props that we went with.
been a problem, I know, for me, like finding props that are at least available that are good for what we want to do. And it's actually kind of a limited market. A lot of the props are kind of meant for slower
It is.
flyers, and they aren't really designed for what we need them to do.
There's a lot of prop manufacturers out there that make a great prop that would work fantastic for this, but unfortunately they don't make clockwise versions. So they only make one direction, and we need both. So as far as this scale, if you want a solid performing, no flex, no mess, no hassle prop, this has been our go-to.
So Brian, I guess you're running motors, right?
No, we are not running T-Motor motors. We are running a very, very off-brand. I don't even actually have a name for the manufacturer. It was something that I dug around online until I found a motor frame that would work for this is our Gen 2 drivetrain. So these are hand wound by me to a very specific to solve the problems with our Gen 1 drivetrains. Anybody who's watching that has seen these photos, or seen these quads before, may remember way back when we released those videos and those original pictures back in November of last year. I actually got a lot of flack for having little tiny motors on these giant paws. Well, now anybody who sees the machines are like, oh, makes sense. Makes total sense. You were kind of planning for that, weren't you? Yeah, we were. So even at the Gen 1 drivetrain, I knew in early testing back then, I was like, yeah, whatever frame we're making is going to have to be ready for the next step. And thankfully it was.
Right on. And so what is that frame actually made out of? I'm really curious.
Well, this kind of gets into my background, what I do for a living. I meet all variety of people throughout manufacturing, and I found someone who lays composites. Anybody who's in aerospace may or may not know what that is. He actually can lay a single sheet of carbon fiber, whether it's 12K, 3K, whatever it is, on anything. We actually, he's made like cowls for fixed wing aircraft and things along those lines. So the reason we picked these designs is because it was easy, quick for him to make for us. So the frames are made of multiple different layers of our own design, our own little mix. But these are, please mind you, and these are prototypes. This is our Gen 2 prototype. Like you said, Zoe, it will take a beating. I can stand on either one of them, jump up and down, and nothing happens. They don't crack. They don't probably drive a car on them. I mean, they are tough.
What's their
but
weight?
Unfortunately, at the cost of an extreme amount of weight. Granted, the amount of power we're putting out doesn't really matter. But for testing,
well, it's actually kind of
every
interesting.
time,
like it doesn't really matter if you're getting up to like a really good speed because like the weight. I mean, I'm saying the weight doesn't matter as much at that scale. If you, it's all about
correct
putting the thrust at like Ken Liu put out a video saying heavier quad is faster. And it's just because the props were loaded differently with the heavier quad and it allowed it to grip the air differently. So, you know, weight isn't everything. And I see, a lot of the X-Class guys are going as light as possible on their setups, but I definitely can see where having a heavier quad could be kind of advantageous, at least in straightaways, when you want to stick lower to the road and have kind of a good feel.
Yeah, they do. I've got about 3 flights on the Viper, and I'm really, really happy with how things turned out. I'm not 100% with it yet, but I'm really happy with it. Obviously, the reason we went heavy was durability. If anybody saw the video from Thanksgiving Day last year we released, that was actually that flight that morning. I believe it was the second flight ever on that airframe, and that is one hell of a crash. And all it did was break a prop. It didn't even stress the frame. So this yellow Viper has probably been crashed about 6 times, 2 times in a row at about 50 miles an hour, cartwheeling through cornfields. Yeah, and it's still in one piece. So I was really happy with the investment that we made. It wasn't the right choice, but for testing, it worked out.
That's right on. Like I really also like the fact your frames are quite visible in flight. You know, because like going to really thin carbon tubes, we're gonna start seeing kind of the same problems I think that we had with mini quads, is that it's gonna start to be harder to see. Your frames are very visible, and I think that's something that kind of matters considering one of the whole points of going to the scale is visibility. So
that's kind of where we set out when we started SuperClass. We wanted to address all of the problems with, don't take it the wrong way, but minis on ESPN. You can't get crowds in there. You can't get stadiums full of them because people can't see them. How can you root for your favorite pilot or the underdog if you can't tell one from another? Just, well, this race, that guy's yellow. This race, oh, wait, no, the other guy's yellow.
Yeah, no, that was the big issue for them. Like DRL had to basically manufacture the whole thing around the fact that mini quads are hard to see. And
well, I don't want to call them toys, but come on, people, let's be real. They're tiny little affordable toys.
Well, now when you bring that up, and this is kind of the thing that I don't know, maybe I don't want to talk about, but I do. But the demographics for the mini quad racing, at least when it comes to TV. The only people that are really interested in watching the mini quad racing are kids. That's why Disney and a few other non-ESPN networks are starting to look at mini quad racing, is because it entertains the kids. The kids like the little whizzy whoppies and the little toys going around the track, and like, ooh, I want one of those.
I totally understand. I would have to agree. There, you know, when I was growing up, I grew up around cars. I grew up around hot rods. You know, hot rods, Harleys. That's what we did. If it had tires, you wanted to make it faster. You know, but there was always NASCAR. There was always F1. There was always NHRA. There was always an elite class. Yes, you could have mom and dad could have a cool car in the garage that they work on together as you were a kid or something on those lines. But there was always this professional class, and that's kind of what we wanted to do with SuperClass. We wanted to be able to produce a machine. Don't take this the wrong way, but that normal people couldn't afford. I mean, if we made it so cheap, there would be no room for profit in the manufacturing process. And nobody's going to carry a motor this size for $100.
Well, that's I mean, kind of your problem with that. And it's kind of Freedom Class's problem. And I honestly, and no offense to you, no offense, but the X Class, we took the point of going like, screw standards. We're not going to like tell you and dictate what you have to run. We're not going to try to create the standard. We're going to let the community, the hobbyists, the tinkerers, the mad scientists, the people that have the crazy idea that think it might work, to bring it on the table to show us if it's a good idea and whether or not it will work. And the other difference is that going X Class, you know, 1,000 millimeters, kind of the standard spec. And, you know, I see it as going just a little bit bigger, a little bit louder. And, you know, going forward, I see that the X Class kind of standard continually changing. And probably SuperClass's standard would change too as it grows. But realistically, and realistically though, and this also goes to Freedom Class too, is that Freedom Class never released any racing videos. And, you know, the same thing with SuperClass. I have been waiting for you guys to release a racing video. And it's not a racing drone. It's not a racing drone until it's raced. This is a very fine point. So
yeah, it's
coming.
And with X Class too, and this is the thing with Freedom Class. Freedom Class has had investors. X Class has had no investors. It's a community-based organization through and through. Nobody has a bigger say in the organization than anybody else. And it allows it to kind of grow and change and kind of flex where it needs to. And it really comes from the hobbyists wanting to make it happen. Like, it's all about making the races happen. And we're the only ones that have released any racing standards. Like Freedom Class, like the day our website went online, Freedom Class asked us for our racing standards so they could give them to the FIA so they could copy our shit. So, I mean, you know, there's one thing about having the idea, there's two things about implementing it, and there's three things like doing it. But all of those things, like that being said, like your approach to drone racing is inherently different than X classes. You're trying to create a stock class. We're creating an open class.
No. I think you're missing the point here.
Well, I thought you were trying to get your motor specifically made for those specific frames for a specific league.
No. You're missing the point. These are think of them as developmental engines. Okay, they're a way to test theories. They're a way to put things through its paces. It's a way to, we've got a solution here. Let's move forward. That solution taught us so much. Generation 1 taught us so much here that we were able to move on to this drivetrain, which is literally 20% more powerful than the last, and it pulls less than half the amp draw.
Okay.
Think about that. I mean, we've made huge leaps in the tech. It's still not right, and it's still not finalized. And I'm not trying to create a stock class, just like T-Motor has a whole line of motors for different size machines and so on and so forth.
Again, I guess then what are you trying to do?
Well,
because I was under the impression, I guess I was under the wrong impression then, because you show up with this singular drone, like kind of like Freedom Class. Freedom Class is trying to create a stock class with their specific drones that people use. It's a stock class. So when I saw your setup, I was like, okay, is that a stock class? So then I'm kind of...
It goes back to the props. Remember what I said about the props? We chose those props because they were readily available.
Uh-huh.
Why didn't we go to 1,000 millimeter? Well, this project would have been dead last year. I can't get 20-inch props. I can't get 24-inch props. Not readily available, not at that price range.
Yeah, they are expensive.
Caused me to break props. I'm dead in the water. I can't just throw $200 props on this machine. I need something that I can learn with and grow with and develop with. So this drivetrain would easily support a 1,000-millimeter frame. It's only, an inch and a half on each arm. It's not really that much bigger than that. So that's 770. That's 700. A little bit bigger, and they'd be 1,000. So the drivetrain would pull 1,000. No, not a problem. I'm not trying to create a standard. I don't want to say I'm trying to create a product line either. I'm trying to find a solution for prop loading.
But the thing is, though, the
racing
giant drones already happens. Like, the solution has kind of been figured out, at least with my motors and the ESCs that I've been running. The desyncs haven't been happening. Andrew's been maxing out his test scale. He's getting a new one because of it. And it's kind of like that thing, like, we all ran into these problems. So kind of half the thing is we took a step back to make it into something that worked. We started, and this is a thing that I think Freedom Class didn't do right, and they're learning from now, is that they didn't start with something that worked. They tried to make the impossible happen instead of starting from the basics of just trying to create a fundamental machine that flew and creating a race out of that. He was promising 200 miles an hour originally, Chris Ballard. Like, really fast, super epic drones. Their current demonstrator model looks like a slow slug. Like, it's really anemic in the air. And, it's not a slight at Freedom Class or anything. It's just saying that they have a long way to go to get to their original visions. And now, because of that, they're implementing
what started us.
They're implementing the 500 class now, because they realize there's components that work at that scale. And
correct. And that's the key right there. There are components that will work at that scale. And that's where we kind of stepped in. I was following Freedom Class on and off. It's not like I was like following their page and trolling them or something like that. I mean, every once in a while I was like, I wonder what Freedom Class is up to. Well, I remember seeing a post. This was last year. We're going to fly ours in August, I think it was. They basically promised a flight or a flight video in August. August came and went, no flight video. So in October, right away, we started development on this, and we had everything, the frames made. We put them together, and we got our flight footage together and released it on Thanksgiving Day. Literally in less than 2 months, we turned around from nothing to a running machine with basically stuff off the shelf. But I saw inherent problems with that setup, just like what you guys have fought, and now you have motors and ESCs that are helping with that. But I kind of went beyond that.
That's what I'm saying, is that we didn't even go that far, is that we even backed up and we started getting machines that actually worked with components that we could get to work off the shelf. And we started racing with that. So it's just proving that it was possible. And then the next trick, and this is, I guess, is what I'm saying, is like, I see a lot of it as like cart before the horse, and you got to have the horse to ride to pull the cart. And that really hasn't
I totally
existed.
Then let's discuss that. I'm in St. Louis. You're on the West Coast. What am I going to? I have no marketability here. I can't host giant drone racing here. There's one of me. That's it. I can build one and zip it around a track, but that's it. I'm never going to be able to race it. I'm never going to be able to prove any of these things. My only option here in the Midwest is to create machines unlike anything else and try and solve problems with drivetrains.
Well, see, that's, I think, where you're
all I did was
possibly
just put together store-bought things.
Wrong, and that's kind of why X Class has released rules and standards, is because we're trying to encourage people.
That's fine.
To be able
I'm not trying to compete with you.
No, I'm not saying competitive-wise. I'm saying is that you have to encourage people to start holding the races elsewhere, because now there's people that want to hold races in their own neck of the woods, and they're asking, like, what rules do we need? So we put out rules. And that's kind of the thing, is like, and with us, like, there wasn't anybody else that were doing it locally until we started doing it and showing that it was possible. So, like Kevin Sellers went to Hawaii with his BFD, and he was ready to throw down for the first drone race then. And unfortunately, nobody showed up. So he wasn't able to do it at that point. So then Kevin
I
and
remember when he was flying it there. What was that in Octo?
yeah, it was an Octo at that point. And then I flew against that Octo in December when we had the first AMA sanctioned race. That was an invitational by Tattoo where we threw our X Class or our giant drones at the time up and we flew that. And it was kind of, we weren't trying to do anything besides race. And it was really only two people. It only takes two people. And that's really what sparked the fire. After that happened, it was kind of the unraveling for a lot of people realizing, hey, this is cool. And I know stuff gets spread out, you know, but I'm sure there's at least one other person that would probably want to get into it if they, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
He flies that one.
like that's all it takes to have a good race is two of them, you know,
and it's coming. We've been fighting tech, trying to get more speed and more performance and so on and so forth out of these machines. And if you remember, I was going to try and make the race that you guys had back in, what was that, January? Yeah. I'd already scheduled a trip to Rome for my mother's birthday. So, we had like a week to prepare, still snow and frost on the ground. This one popped an ESC. I can't remember what went wrong with this one. And I'm just like, I can't do it. There's no way that I can get either one of these machines shipped out to the West Coast, me fly out there, compete in a race, and then fly back and catch a plane to Rome.
This is part of the reason why I wanted you on the show is because a lot of people don't know about you, right? And I think part of the thing is I might be reading into it, but I feel like you feel like you're being stomped on a little bit by like X Class or some of the other organizations that are kind of pushing the large scale drone racing just because that you've put a lot of time, effort, energy, and you've been doing it and you've had your head in it for a while and it's kind of your baby too, right?
Okay, I think you're kind of missing the point of SuperClass here.
Well, that's what I'm trying to get at. What's the point of the SuperClass? What are you trying to do with it?
Well, we're Team Motor Nuts. Me and Jeff are Team Motor Nuts. OCD FPV is his pilot name. The two of us are basically interested in the mechanics side of it, if you want to think of it, the engineering side of it. We're not trying to create a class. Don't get that wrong. You may have X
well, maybe that's why I got because it says SuperClass, and I'm like, my brain is like.
But you have to realize that name was out before you guys. It wasn't. If you watch the original videos, it's not about actually creating a class with racing rules, a competitive standard, and all those types of things. It was about, just like I've talked to Chris Thomas a little bit about it. It was to create a machine that was the elite end of things. I don't want to say so that a young kid without any money could build one and potentially hurt someone with it because it's so large. And experienced pilots, it was for sponsored pilots. It was to the pizzazz, the bright frames to attract Mountain Dew and DeWalt and Budweiser. I mean, it was to bring the sponsors back. It was to produce a vessel. You created the racing. I'm over here trying to create a machine that will pop in the sky, that will get people's attention.
The giant drone racing has been near and dear to my heart because I want to go, this was back, I want to say January-ish of last year, of 2016. I contacted, at the time, DR1, before they had put out anything about doing giant drone racing. At the time, they weren't interested. So, like, and then I went on in March talking about giant drone racing on the FPV podcast, saying, this is what I'm working on, this is what I want to do, this is the machine that I've got, and this is what I want to do in the future. And I know the sport is going to go there, right? And you have the same vision. You know the sport has to go there. Like,
right. In order for it to survive in the real world, it's going to have to go, I don't want to say big, but it's got to go big. You got to be able to see it. I hate to sound like Trump, and I don't. It's not even, it's gotta be
Get
big.
off my show, you usurper!
But seriously, I mean, I flew the Viper this past weekend. Jeff, he apologizes for not being able to be here. He's actually out on vacation with his wife and supposedly be back late tonight.
It was last minute. Like, I just thank you for being on the show. Like, it's amazing because this is kind of a topic I've wanted to talk about. So it was a really good fit.
I understand. And so I got to race. Racing's the wrong term. I got to pour the coals on the Viper last weekend, and we were really, really impressed. Jeff flew the Scorpion the weekend before, line of sight, and we were really, really impressed. So I think we've got a combination now where we can get some head-to-head racing. We can get some videos, some footage out there to really get imaginations flowing as far as the machines, as far as what they could possibly look like in the air.
Yeah, and so on that note, what they could look like, Laura Gaming in the chat says, get some of those little RC turbines on a stretch X frame. Like adding a secondary thrust dynamic to frames has been something a lot of people have been playing with. I know Jack at ASL, Andrew Dysonian, and then Team Autodesk. They're all working on having a secondary thrust. And Team Autodesk has a turbine. I don't know if I'm spoiling things, and I have learned this all through like social media stuff, but Autodesk is working on a turbine power X-Class machine that will make us all look like little babies when it comes out. If it comes out. So it was supposed to come out like 3 months ago, but I haven't seen it. And that's kind of the thing, is a lot of the X-Class people, like, we've heard about all these projects, like, yeah, I'm working on this really big epic drone that's going to be really fast and awesome. And we just like wanted it to like start doing it. And that was like all it was about. And now
Let's do it.
and now it's like started spiraling out of control. Like, we didn't even want to start having a league, but now we're starting kind of the league stuff and starting to help chapters hold races in other parts of the country. Because for us, you talk about travel, right? You have one person that's hard to travel. For us to move, we have 10 people that are part of X-Class, equal members. To move all of our asses around is really difficult. So we have like the exact opposite problem, but in the same way, we have the same problem. So like it's and that's what I'm saying. We're trying to encourage people to hold these races. And that's kind of why I wanted to bring on the show, is to show that, hey, you're out there, you're doing this. It's not just the guys on the West Coast, it's not just Chris Ballard in Australia. You're holding it down in the Midwest, and you're working on some really cool stuff. And
that's basically all that I can do.
And I honestly think, like, at least sponsor wise, like, where do you want to take it? Like, because like that's the thing, when you're trying to sell sponsors, you have to sell them on a vision. So if sponsors are listening right now, or if manufacturers are listening right now, like what do you need to take it to the next level? Not in specifics, but just in generalities. And then what is that next level that you want to take it to?
Well, custom motors specifically for giant drone racing, not an aerial photography motor, repurposed, a whole new generation of motors, which I have a design for, but I need more data from these birds over here before I can actually lay down and have some motors made. So that's been part of my problem. From last year, when I was first flying them, I wanted a better motor than what I had. I wanted better magnets and so on and so forth. So I contacted Team Motors, Sunny Sky, KDE, all these people, and I'm giving them all of the specs of everything that I want. And Sunny Sky was the only motor manufacturer that came back, and they said, okay, we'll make them for you. All right, awesome. How much are they going to cost? $400 a piece. Oh, that's a lot of money. And I went, okay, I want to order 5. So I got 1 to test and 4 to fly. And they go, no, minimum order of 50.
Wow.
No way.
So just to test? But that's what has kind of frustrated us here, because I don't want to say we're doing it the hard way, like you said, the cart before the horse. But it's all that we can do. We can't step in front of sponsors and go, hey, we're doing all this cool stuff out here. Help us out.
No, see, that's where I was really lucky.
Pay for it.
That's where I was really lucky, is because I had existing sponsorships where I was able to go, and existing relationships with manufacturers. And be like, hey, this is a really cool idea. And I could easily shop the idea around to a couple different people until someone bit. And thankfully, B-Rotor bit, and now they're really on the train of like, just tell us the specs that you want and we will build it to spec. Don't minimum order 5. They literally, like, they're happy getting 5 of them out. Like, and at this point in time, they're actually been so popular that the first like real shipment that they got in has been sold out, and we're currently figuring out what to do with revision 2. So, the whole idea is to kind of temper expectations for the manufacturers and realize that these might not be a giant selling item immediately, but there is a market for it, especially when,
Right.
like my motors, like you're saying T-Motor wanted $400 a motor. I was able to get the cost
Sunny
down.
Sky.
Sunny Sky wanted $400 a motor. I was able to get the price down to $270 a set. So that is like a substantial cost
Yeah.
difference compared to what, like, even T-Motor, I've heard they're thinking about charging $400 for the F1000s just because they
Right.
wanted to have like a weird exclusive price.
Right.
I honestly,
See,
oh, go ahead.
so what they're basically doing. Okay, so a little bit of history on me. I don't mean to change the subject, and I'm not really changing the subject. I'm
Oh no,
just
this is all about you
expanding
right
a
now.
little
This is all about you.
bit. I apologize, but I'm a traveling service engineer for Mazak International. I work on giant CNC machines, multi-million-dollar machines, and for the past 20 years, I have been in manufacturing, every type of manufacturing, from aerospace to AG to small arms repair, everything. Surgical equipment and more, bone drills and the like, some crazy stuff out there. So that's where I got to see like the composite laminates and so on and so forth. So motor manufacturers, I actually have customers that are motor manufacturers, and I've gotten to see how they assemble the stators. They're stamped and stacked, silicon steel, everything. I can literally build a motor, not saying in my garage, but I can literally design a motor from scratch and have a local machine shop manufacture it right here locally just for me to test. It would be fantastic if I could get Sunny Sky or T-Motor or somebody to be like, all right, Brian, we'll help you out. What spec do you need for testing? And we'll make a custom motor to those sizes. The problem is it's a manufacturing facility. They're already set up. They're already making that size can. They're making that size stator. For them to retool
So easy.
and to make something from scratch.
It's so easy to be able to retool than to have to just do it all from scratch. Because like when you make a stator, you have to get a stator mold, and those can be very expensive. Unless you're
They're not molded. They're not molded. They're stamped.
So easy.
Because
Sorry.
The mold for the stamp. If I'm
right. So it's called a die.
Yeah.
So to produce a stamping die is very, very expensive. Most of these motors, when they're stamped, like our little 2205s, all of those little stator rings that are in there that stack up that create that there's literally a press in a plant somewhere going ka-chunk, 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 and every time it hits, 30 of them pop out.
Right.
So ka-chunk, there's 30, ka-chunk, there's 30, ka-chunk, and just all night long. Thousands of them. Then an automated machine stacks them up, stamps them into that little thing that you got, and they wrap a little wire around them, and there's your motor.
Right.
So, there's all sorts of other ways of manufacturing. Why do they make them that way? Because it's fast. It's really fast and cost efficient to produce thousands upon thousands of them.
At scale, right.
Well, if you need to, right. So for me to ask them to make a taller stator, same diameter, oh yeah, that's easy. Just stack up more of them. Well, there's no bell. And they don't have any magnets in stock that are tall enough to match that. So now they've got to make one, change the program for that, the tooling for that. Then they've got to order the magnets and everything else. So essentially they're making them custom regardless. Yes, they may have the facility already, but they still have to retool the line.
Right.
I've been into manufacturing facilities that make, massive, we've got Husky gas pump nozzles here in St. Louis among several other things. So they actually make gas pump nozzles. For me to walk in there and say, hey, I want 5 of them, but they need to be this diameter. They'll just look at me and laugh, because they're like, we're not a custom machine shop. We're manufacturing. For us to stop everything, change all the tooling, make 5, and then spit them out the door. We'll make them in our tool room, but it's going to cost you an arm and a leg.
Kind of what I've been finding out. I know, at least on the manufacturing end, like getting the 2010 stator made, because that was a whole new stator design for the market.
Mm-hmm.
Getting that done, I had to do a new bell housing. It was like retooling basically a whole bunch of stuff for B-rotor, and for them to kind of take the bullet to manufacture a completely different stator motor was a big deal for them.
Yeah.
And
Sorry. So are you running this X-Class motors?
yeah,
X6?
yeah.
The
So
one
those
you're
are
showing?
the current ones that I'm running, and those are kind of similar to the F1000s coming out, but they're not. They're a different kV. Both of them, though, I think will probably put out similar amounts of power. I know we just broke the test stand at over 5 kg, and then Andrew is at I think the F1000s are saying 6. So I think the numbers are very close, but we'll find out all the details on that. I'm still working on that. That's kind of the thing is the market for those, he's taking an existing stator, he's retooling it, he's putting a different KV on it, and he's basically taking existing motors that he's had in stock, he's changing them a bit, and then he's re-releasing them, and in a lot of ways, kind of saving a bunch of cash. Because you don't have to make the stator, you don't have to make the bell housing, and yeah, so that's kind of the thing. Like manufacturers, they want to do a lot of volume, and finding ones that are okay with doing low volume, you start getting to guys that build them out of their garage. And there's this like one guy I was just actually talking to with Ruben on, they'll be on the FPV Raw podcast, but he and his stator, everything is custom, and he's getting 40 pounds of thrust from that motor. It's a custom one-off motor. It's running a 15-inch prop, and he's getting 40 pounds of thrust.
We're getting 20.
Yeah,
we're getting 21.
21. That's impressive. That's what I'm saying. Like when I heard 40, my mouth dropped because that's a lot of thrust off of a 15-inch prop, and I'm going to be trying to contact that motor manufacturer to see if I can get me some of those because that would be intense. But that's kind of the thing is
Indeed.
that motor manufacturers really need to step up to the plate. And it's kind of hard because a lot of them are in China and there's just an inherent cultural and language barrier. And, the language can be really hard to get around. And that's, it's something that I've started to get around and I'm starting to understand more and more, especially with my relationships with different Chinese manufacturers. But it's something that when you're trying to explain to them, like, no, this is a new market. You get to be at the forefront of it. You get to set the standard from which others follow,
Right.
Like trying to get that point across to a lot of them. They're like, no, show me what you want and then show me that's popular and I'll make 1,000,000 of them. Like the disconnect between that is really hard. But then if you can argue that point, you can get manufacturers behind you. And T-Motor has started to do that a little bit. Like the F1000s, I know they were selling, I think, and I just from rumor, about $50 or pop just in previews to some pilots. And they found some interesting things out with that. And they went back and they retooled it for the new F1000s that they've posted on Facebook today. And that's been kind of the thing is like T-Motor's one, B-Rotor's another. There's still a few other motor manufacturers. Like I could see you and Diatone, for example, teaming up because Diatone knows a decent amount, like about their later motors have been really high quality. They probably be just chomping at the bit to have somebody that's knowledgeable about the motors to be able to push something larger because I know there's other companies that want to get into the giant drone racing now and they kind of need people, more people, like. So what do you want out of sponsorship or not sponsorship shows, but what are you looking to get out of a relationship with a motor company? Like what side of the bed do you want to wake up on? I guess is the question.
Well, I'm not saying I'm independently wealthy and this is my hobby and I just throw all my extra money at it. But that's basically, I have a unique situation because of my age and my career. I have the capacity to be able to make prototypes or the way that I do. We have a 3D printer in-house here, 150 minis, and we can pretty much prototype, manufacture, and produce actual product here in-house. As far as CNC work, custom bells, so on and so forth, I have connections at local machine shops here don't want to say they're chomping at the bit, but they're waiting for me to show up with a SD card and say, can you make this? And they'll be like, yeah, we'll get you a quote right away. So that's my next goal, my next step with this. We obviously, these just got together. They're only about 2 weeks old. I travel, so usually I'm gone all week. So it's not like we get to do a whole lot of testing. We only get to fly and test and so on and so forth. It's usually 2 days a week. Goal with these, after we get a little bit more data off of them, I've got, like I think I was telling you, I've got one more piece of the puzzle that I need before I say, we've got it, we've got a good product. We make them in any size, for any size frame, any application. We've got a solution here. And I think the next step is going to be to have 5 custom motors made for a whole new frame design. It's already in the works. And if that motor produces on the stand, you know, sky's the limit. We'll be able to, you know, call you guys out on the West Coast, get a hold of Diatone or Sunny Sky or whomever and say, hey, we actually have a functioning prototype here. Here's our data. Can you make these and sell them with our name on the side of them? And, you know, have 3 different size motors for 3 different classes of X-class machines. And, you know, our ESCs say S-class on them now. We have our own little product of ESCs. And so you know, that's basically the goal that we have here, is that development side of things, to be able to get information so that we can say, yes, this is a bulletproof design, because safety is paramount with these big machines. If you're pushing electronic components and motors to their absolute limit, if you get a motor failure or something in midair, it can be devastating.
Yeah, and then
So
that's kind of what happened with with Colby's machine during the first X-Class race. He was pushing it too hard. His motor had a problem and it fell out of the sky at the end after he had won. He was showing off.
I didn't catch that. I didn't see that, I guess. So yeah, I mean that's our goal here, is to develop the machines that are raced. You know, if people want to build their own and compete in X-Class, that's great. If they want to contact us and have custom machines made to, I don't want to say to our spec, but to a spec, that's what we're here for.
That's cool. I mean, I definitely want to promote everything that you're doing, because I just feel like that you deserve a lot more credit than what's been going around. I mean, your videos, you know, haven't gotten a lot of views compared to X-Class and like Freedom Class, and then we haven't even gotten a lot of views compared to Flight Test 1 million view video of their giant racing drone.
Yeah, viral.
Yeah, I remember when that came out. I don't want to say we laughed, but we were just like, oh my god, that looks familiar.
And I was like, hey, that looks like SuperClass, but a little bigger, and with a fake GoPro. So
a giant fake GoPro. We were actually talking about that. So last year when we released these, when we were first building them, I remember Jeff and I talking about them. I was like, okay, so we can go get an ornament, right? And we're going to cut off the diameter of the ornament that's clear, and that's going to be our lens. And we're going to put an actual FPV camera behind that. We'll 3D print a giant case that like holds it all together. I remember when we were having that conversation, and Jeff just looked at me and went, not happening. We're not putting that on.
And
so
boom, like this.
So there's a reason he's called OCD FPV. Put that way. The guy.
That's funny.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to call us the research and development team. I'm not a great pilot. Jeff's pretty good, and you know, it's enough to be able to build and develop. I think a lot of this for me comes from that hot rod and Harley background. And obviously manufacturing machine tools. You know, the first time I ever flew like a 30cc gasser, and I know Jeff flew 30 and 50cc gassers, the amount of raw power and the authority you have underneath your thumbs when you're moving those around. I mean, that was all part of it. And we were waiting for Freedom Class. Nothing happened. And we were just like, want to try it? Yeah, sure. What not? You know, so you know, we were like, damn, we need to make one that's got like serious, stupid power. Think we can do it? Yeah. So, you know, that's basically been the goal from the very beginning. And it kind of morphed into this, I don't want to say a goal to be the custom shop, the place that you go for the custom stuff. It'd be great if we had manufacturers knocking on our door for our data and willing to make prototypes, but we don't. We're in the Midwest. We can't compete with the West Coast.
But you don't have. I'm saying there's more manufacturers than what we can even round up on the West Coast. And it's not like a West Coast, East Coast, Mid Coast thing. It's
no. Right. It's not a competition, and that's what I'm saying. Is I've already found. I don't want to say manufacturers, but machine shops here that will help me with those prototype designs.
I mean, my hope is to kind of help you get a spotlight, because that's kind of the thing with the internet is you don't have to have much nearby, but with the internet and the community that we have, information travels. We can share stuff and we can make stuff known. And with dealing with China and stuff, it doesn't matter where you are in the United States. I could be anywhere in the world and still have the same relationship that I do with B-Rotor and a few other manufacturers like Gemfan and Tattoo even. So it's kind of a thing where I want you to be able to hopefully find someone that's able to take and partner up with you to create the motors and the machinery that you want. Because, and ideally in the world that I see, if someone like Diatone, for example, if they teamed up with you, then that would push T-Motor to create a better motor. That would push B-Rotor to create a better motor. And overall, market competition is good for everybody. And
I totally agree.
Prices
come down and people can afford things. I totally agree.
Yeah, and that's really where I want to get it to go, because X-Class quad, doing a 1,000 millimeter quad, one of the ideas is that's really expensive. Reiner over in X-Class has a $300 build that he has proven is faster than a lot of our setups. And it's kind of amazed us because it's kind of popped the idea that you don't have to have it expensive. And with the quad, the Rotor Riot sells a pre-built quad for $800. If you build the X-Class setup that I run with the parts from B-Rotor, you can spend about the same price. So when you talk about the costs, the costs are kind of there right now. What we need to do is push the technology and the market forward as far as showing people that it can be done, that there's interest in it, and that people want to do it. Because I know I think there's at least 20 of you / me, people that want to do it, have seen people like Freedom Class come out and be like, hey, we're going to do giant drone racing. Like, okay, I'm waiting. Show me. And then we're like, I think I could do that. I think I could do that. And so I think there's a lot of people that are just waiting for this to happen. And there might be a team near you that might be looking to get into it. And that could just be the start of, your SuperClass chapter. And the same thing with Oregon. This is the thing. There's these little pockets of people everywhere in the United States working on some of the same stuff. Oh gosh, Santiago. There we go. That is the video I wanted to kind of post. I wish we had audio on this, but it's mostly...
Yeah, I know the one. Just do it. I know it.
Basically, just do it. I mean, it's difficult. It's hard, but if there's nothing ventured, if nothing gained. And this is kind of why I wanted to bring on the podcast, to show that you're venturing, and you're looking at some point, hopefully, to at least break even, at least make the effort worth it, or at least see your idea come to fruition. And I want to promote that. I want to see the awesome, badass motor designs that you're working on. I want to see what you're working on come to fruition, because ultimately, it's going to push the whole drone industry forward.
Well, like I said, our goal here is to be able to create, these machines. I don't want to say one of a kind, but just like with stock cars, how the theme of the car is different per sponsor. If you've ever watched some of the cartoon of Speed Racer, I believe it was 2008, there was a live action Speed Racer movie made the Matrix. Everybody is racing on the same track, but every car is different. It's themed different, it's shaped different, it's colored different, yet everybody's racing neck and neck.
I kind of see that as the wacky races. Everyone's got a really unique individual machine that really shows off their flair.
The Viper is my shape. Lord knows what anybody else's shape might be. You know what I'm saying? You know, it could be totally rounded off and elegant or whatever. You can also kind of, what was the movie from Cars? Was it Airplanes or something like that? I can't remember.
Hey,
Made by the same
Santiago,
people.
I think we got a question in
Tony.
chat.
Uh-oh.
I think there's a question in
question?
chat. Yeah, do you want to read that?
Yeah, sure. The question for your brain: how much does one of your giant drones on average cost?
I might let the Viper go for 4,500.
Okay. That's
4,500.
actually, you know what? I could totally see a market of giant racing drones being custom made for about $5,000. I know there's some really rich people out there be like, ooh, that's a cool toy. Give me.
I mean, Zoe, in your head real quick. Each ESC is $100. Let's just round them off. ESCs, $100 each. Motors, $100 each. Props are 15 a piece. Handmade frame, takes me 2 days to make one, maybe nonstop. 2 days worth of my time.
Like regular FPV setup or a special one?
No, Connex. We're not running Connex on the next step on these. Is to run the Connex system. No navigation or GPS. So we're looking at about, in raw costs, no labor, I'm guessing around $2,000 in hardware, you know, in actual tangible stuff. We actually have to assemble it, do all the work, time, and everything, unit, get it ready to go. Is it going to be ready to fly or bind and fly? You know, I fly with the Horus. There's another $500.
Right.
An effort I've got into the Viper there and the other one, I'd probably let these go for about, I'd let mine go. I can't really speak for Jeff.
So Tor Odison just said, I remember Zoe made a mention on Tuesday that one that dirt napped at Flight Fest costs the same as a small car. Yeah, so Kevin Seller's prototype rig, it costs the same as a small used car. I mean, if you're talking about $1,000. I mean, in the Bay Area, you can buy a beater car for $1,000. At least that's kind of my look at that. So,
you can buy them here too.
Yeah, and the thing is, Kevin kept crashing that machine during Flight Fest, and he was basically rebuilding it the entire time. I felt so bad for him, but it was cool. It was cool.
Hey, Zoe, you like to fly 3D. I hate to change the subject, but you like to fly 3D, right?
Yeah, that's a big passion of mine.
So, my picture is probably really crappy, isn't it?
No,
my video.
I can see a quadcopter.
See the tip of my finger. See the tip of my finger back there? You see that long straight one? That was my infamous bloodletter. I flew at E-Fest several years back. That's a fully 3D acrobatic quad, line of sight. And I developed that one. It took me about 1.5 years, and I had people. It's actually made out of carbon fiber, and the entire thing is actually held together with zip ties. There's not a single screw in it.
Zip ties are the best ties. When you crash, it just pops apart and you can put it back together.
Yeah.
Right. I actually have photos of it like springtime, and I was doing some crazy, insane flips and whatnot like that, and I buried that sucker in the pile drived it in. Every zip tie broke. Every motor broke. I mean, it's like 8 pieces. You know, you just pick them up in a pile and you carry them back. 5 minutes later, it's back in the air, tearing it up again.
1806 motors, 50-30 props.
Huh?
1806 motors, 50-30 props.
Oh no, not on the bloodletter. We were doing stupid stuff back then.
Yeah, I'm actually really curious. I'm super curious about your. Okay, that's bigger. So the 8-inch. Yeah,
we were running slow flies back then. We could put the APCs on there and kind of turn it into an FPV rig now, but it's pretty much retired.
I can see the zip ties.
Yeah, so the entire frame was put together. I actually sent the second prototype of this to flight test, and shortly thereafter they released their Versacopter that was box shaped like this. If you remember that. I was going to say
that looks a lot like the Versacopter. I was actually going to ask you, hey,
right? I actually sent my second prototype to them, and they released the Versacopter 4 to 6 months afterwards. I mean, it would take me forever to actually find that, but. You know, I actually told them back then, I said, if you can do anything with the design, do something with it. I don't care. You know, I mean, I was having so much fun with it back then. I didn't care.
Right. And I mean, that's
anyway,
kind of the thing with all the X-Class stuff. We're like, just We'll give everyone the designs. Just do something with it. Like that's
Right. Well, I mean, the whole point of my I guess the way that I develop things, I guess the way that I function is just like with the bloodletter. I mean, what, 300 crashes nonstop? And you just modify and improve and modify and improve and modify and improve. Well, I learned from that thing, it's that frame every 4 flights, in development. So, I realized the initial investment is going to be pretty high for a developing platform that I can put various motors, prop combinations on until we get that sweet spot. Weight's not so much of an issue, like you pointed out, in this size. You and I were going to talk a little bit about prop loading, I think.
Yeah, that's actually one of the things.
How that plays out.
Yeah, so actually, let's get into that right now. What explain to us all prop loading and why that is important on large scale drones.
Yeah,
well, the very first time we ever flew one of these, it threw me off. I was like, why is it floating like it is? It won't come down. It won't sink like a 5-inch machine. And a lot of people say, oh, well, it's power to weight ratio. I said, but that weighs 15 pounds and that weighs a pound. Why does that one sink like a rock and this one takes forever to come down? So I went back and I scratched my head and I realized the surface area greatly increases with the size of the thing. It's not a 1-to-1 ratio. The best way that I can explain it when I explain to people that I talk to,
it's like an exponential.
It's an exponential curve, but the easiest way to think about it is, let's say, for instance, you've got your favorite little RC airplane, maybe just a plane you throw in the garage. Let's say that wings, the wing size, the wing area of that machine is 10 inches by 10 inches. Well, that's 100 square inches of surface area supporting that aircraft. Well, you decide you like it so much, you want to build a big one. Let's make one 10 times bigger. That wing is going to be 100 by 100. Well, that surface area is not 1,000.
Right.
It's 10,000. It's astronomically larger. So when we went to this machine, regardless of the weight, the actual column of air that these things are riding on is exponentially larger than a little one. It's a totally different animal. The way that it acts, the way that it rotates, everything about it is completely and totally different because it doesn't weigh what that one weighs. That one actually weighs more per square inch of prop area than that one does.
Right.
Yeah, also materials, right?
It's not just materials, it's just the surface area of the prop. You want to think about it, another way that you can think about it is like you're going down the highway, you roll down the window of your car, you stick your finger out the window, or you put your hand out the window.
Right.
It stops a whole lot more air. The amount of air this is moving
but the idea is
itself,
that's exponential as you grow the prop out. So like going from 5 to 6 is a difference, but then you start adding like more depth to the prop and not just gains length. So then as you get to the scales that we're getting at, it grows not like on a linear curve so much as more of an exponential curve. So it kind of adds to the fun of it.
A 5-inch prop, you'd be like, okay, so the surface area is going to be, we're going to take a 5-inch prop, we're going to make it a 15-inch prop. So that's times 3, right? So our surface area on one should equal the other one times 3. It doesn't. It's like the other one times 9.
Right.
It's just exponentially more. It doesn't even make sense.
And you have more aerodynamic drag too. That's the other thing. Like if you're in wind, you have more surface area for everything to affect you. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because like if you're trying to drop RPM to lower the aircraft, like these things will float at very low RPM, and you're like, oh, I have really high power to weight ratio. And it's more like it's just the way aerodynamics work with has much surface area as you're swinging on those props.
Right.
It's like
Sister says on the Twitch chat, more blades. What about that?
Yeah.
Oh, having more blades, having 3 as opposed to 2 or something like that? Is that what he's asking?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Obviously the most efficient propeller in the world is a single-bladed propeller. That's the most efficient. The problem with a tri-blade or a 4-blade or a 5-blade is the blade, as it passes through the air, actually creates turbulence. So the more blades you have, the second blade and the third blade and the fourth blade is actually going through dirty air, and it's not really producing much lift. once you get past 3 blades, yeah, it's pretty much useless, especially at high RPM.
So that's kind of the thing with these motors. We're already kind of pushing the inefficiency end of them. So adding more blades past 3, we start hitting some interesting problems.
Yeah, torque.
So it's
not enough
hard.
torque.
No torque. And that's kind of the thing is like, I know right now I've been trying to find the lightest possible 15-inch propeller because, and the least amount of surface area is something that's very, elegant to swing at very high kV versus something that has a lot of surface area and kind of smaller. So like the idea is to spin higher kV with less surface area. So when you're going at full speed, not at lower speeds, but at full speed, your tip speed's able to hit like higher end speeds. So instead you're sacrificing the torque for top end speed and top end RPM. And there's a benefit and kind of a downfall to both. And one of the other things I think that we're all going to go to eventually is collective pitch, because a collective pitch motor and blade design is super efficient when we start getting to crazy speeds. And being able to change the pitch in flight allows you to change the way the quad or the machine grips the air. So if you're going faster speeds, you decrease the pitch and allows you to hit even higher speeds.
Right. I agree and kind of disagree. I talked with Robert over at APC actually about that. I was like, because I was talking with him about some of his props, and I said, why couldn't I just have a hub made, excuse me, why couldn't I just have a hub made and put 2 fixed pitch helicopter props on there? Just take 2 collective pitch heli blades, set at a specific pitch, bolt them down, and off I go. And he goes, well, you're actually gonna introduce a lot of drag. He said the reason that their props are curled towards the root is not the entire propeller actually does work. It's kind of like only 30% out towards the tip, and the tip doesn't even do a whole lot of work. You can actually cut about 1 inch off of most props and won't do much of it. Won't even notice the difference.
No, what I was getting at wasn't the taking a collective pitch and making it fixed pitch, but having an actively working collective pitch.
I understand that. Okay. But the problem with that is as the entire blade turns to present that air that you're grabbing, the portion of the prop that is at the root of the hub that's spinning, that much less air. So if anything, it's acting more like an air dam. That's why APC and a lot of the manufacturers.
No, the idea is when you go to higher kV and you're spinning up the prop, you use less pitch, not more pitch. And with the proper 3D heli blade, you're decreasing that resistance on the airflow, so this prop can spin faster and has less drag and all that good shit.
The prop may spin faster, but the air that it's moving doesn't move any faster. That's what I'm saying.
But what I'm saying is that if the quad is moving 100 miles an hour, and you change you change the pitch of the prop to match so it doesn't have to keep grabbing, it's already in that. So you're trying to make it so it doesn't have to create extra work for itself at those high RPM speeds when it's going at high speed. The idea with the collective pitch is that you have the best of both worlds to where you can change the pitch at low end, but then what we can't do right now is to go really extreme high speeds of very low pitch or low pitch.
Very high pitch.
Well, talking about
low RPMs, high pitch would mean higher speed machine.
I'm saying higher RPMs with less pitch. So, and that's, I think, where we're differing is like you want to push more air at higher RPMs. I'm looking to try to find that sweet spot with the collective pitch. And I'm not talking about like 100 miles an hour. I'm trying to talk about like getting up to like 200 plus miles an hour, where we start getting around that weird end of breaking Mach, or we really start getting into the end of like where the physics are not happy with a fixed pitch design, so inherently a collective pitch blade makes sense. And right now we're all trying to push the extremes of a fixed pitch blade where it's kind of, who knows? I could be wrong. I'm just kind of bringing it up because I think it's an interesting point of conversation.
I totally agree. And I explored that when we were building these. I wanted to know, because like you were talking about, the tip of the blade goes supersonic. and problems happen at that speed. So I was curious. I was like, like a Cessna, a little 4-person airplane with a prop on the nose of it. I wonder how fast that prop spins. So I got to talking to a few different people, went and actually looked up a few things online and talked to actual pilots who actually have those. And they said, yeah, we never get our motors over about 3,000 RPM. Usually cruise speeds around 2,500 RPM. It's like, you're kidding me. You're doing 130, 140 miles an hour. He goes, yeah, but we got like 20-foot pitch props. Oh. So you're telling me that on the runway, you've got almost no pitch to the prop, whole bunch of RPM, moving a lot of wind, but you're not going very fast. You get off the ground and you start to roll that pitch steeper and steeper and steeper. You're grabbing more air, but less RPM. So you're actually going faster because that pitch. So every rotation of that prop moves it 10 foot or 20 foot or whatever. So the steeper the pitch prop, the faster you're going to go at a lower RPM, which is a great concept. And that's collective pitch props. That's exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, over here, the chat, they say, I agree, we can do fixed pitch forever. You don't just start out of 200 miles per hour. We start at 0.
So I think that's the thing is like you start the pitch really low at 0, whatever, so you have the extra thrust to get up to the higher speeds. And it's,
right. So you got that lowing grunt to change directions. And then when you're actually going down the straightaway, you can stretch your legs, get that pitch way up there high and get moving. And you near a turn or something like that, and you drop that pitch back down so that you've got that lowing grunt to be able to make that turn. Totally agree. That would be an awesome concept.
It's just really hard to pull off technologically and mechanically too, because like you crash a machine like that, if you have it set up right, you're destroying linkages and like everyone knows how, finicky 3D helis are. Just think about 4 of those, motors and linkage systems being destroyed.
Wasn't it Curtis Youngblood?
Yeah, Curtis Youngblood has a 1,000 millimeter style quad that does 3D collective pitch flying that I want to do FPV on. I've been salivating over that machine for a while.
Well, Hobby King's got a knockoff of that for a whole lot cheaper.
The Reaper 500.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
No, I'm not doing it. No, Zoe, I'm not doing it. I'm not going to go down that road with you.
But no, it was just with the X-Class, with the giant racing stuff, and just seeing like everything that's been happening. I'm glad that I was able to get you on here to talk about stuff like pitch, all that, because there's a lot of people in the community. They're like, okay, what are the differences going from a 5-inch to a 15-inch quad? What are the things that I have to think about? And this kind of conversation, I think, is kind of illuminating to that. So then I guess like this kind of rolls into another question. We kind of went over your past work a little bit. What's your standard career? Like, what do you do end of the day to fund your giant drone racing habit?
Well, like I said, I travel as a service engineer for Mazak International. So I work on multi-million-dollar CNC equipment. Not always. Sometimes it's the cheaper ones. Today we put a spindle in the machine here in southern Missouri, and tomorrow I don't know where I'm going to be. So I'm home this week, and next week I could be someplace else. So I have no control over my work schedule and where I'm going to go. I've been on the road for 18, 19 years. I can't even remember when I wasn't. I've been with this company for about 10 years. Basically a glorified mechanic that works on just about anything. So from hydraulics to pneumatics, software and electronics.
Is there any way you can take one of your giant SuperClass drones with you when you travel and just get like epic photos of it in locations to tease people? Like, this could be a racing location. Like,
well, sure there is, but and I used to travel with my quads all the time. That was one of my favorite things to do before they kind of became the cardinal sin. I would like stop off in some great little Iowa town with beautiful scenery and a giant statue of a cow and fly under it. That was what I did. I was like, dude, this is so awesome. I could fly all these remote locations and whatnot. SuperClass would be absolutely fantastic. The problem with getting that footage, as I would, let's say, for instance, let's actually do it. next week. I'll put it in the car, take the batteries with me. I'm done working for the day. It's 3:00. I've already booked my hotel.
Heck yeah.
Let's go find a spot to fly this thing, you know?
Heck yeah.
Well, then I got to set up tripods with cameras. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's flying a 5-inch while I'm out on the road. Great. Taking that thing with me and trying to find a place to fly that where I'm not going to seriously piss people off.
That's very true. Yeah, finding a place to fly a giant drone like that is a pain in the butt. I know for me, it's like, oh no, I can't go to that park. I can't go to that park. They get angry when I fly mini quad. I can't go there. So trying just to find a place to fly these giant things is definitely a challenge.
Yeah, we've got some really nice. We have some really great neighbors here. I live on a dead end street, not quite a cul-de-sac, and I am a dead end house. And all of my neighbors around have been a part of this for the past 5 years, and they don't mind one bit. And we actually hover and tote the SuperClass machines out in front of the house right here down the street. A lot of people see some of those videos and stuff, and they're just like, dude, you're nuts to fly in that tight proximity. And, you know, getting unloading the props, getting it out there, winding it up. We've only hit about 80% throttle on that one. And I mean, I was sitting in my chair under the goggles, coming by myself 30 yards out, and I was chattering my teeth. It is frightening.
Yeah, that's the thing that it's really, really hard to describe, is like the feeling of flying a machine of that scale. And it's
well, no, I heard it. I heard it with my ears, and I was under the goggles. Yeah, just the sheer sound of it coming by.
I mean, you can't with the footage that gets put out. Like, you know, you see it, it's like, oh, okay. You see the onboard footage, like, okay, it looks like it's flying like a normal mini quad. But when you see these things and you feel them in person, not just see them, not just like look at them, but you feel these things when they're in the air in a way that you don't with a mini quad. And when you fly them, it adds this whole layer of excitement that you really don't get with anything else. And yeah.
In my opinion, it's more real. It's more real to the spectators because they can see the quad, they can see what position and attitude the quad is in, and they can see that machine and relate to it. Whereas I fly my minis at local fields and stuff like that too, and a lot of people are like, dude, that's awesome, but it's just a black speck. You know, I mean, they can't tell what orientation the craft is in. I was like, dude, man, that was an awesome flip.
Right.
I didn't see it flip. All I saw was a black dot go, You know, they didn't see, they have no appreciation for the angle or attitude of the quad. Whereas these big machines, you know, somebody's sitting in the grandstand somewhere and 4 or 5 of them come by in the heat of the race, you know, like stock cars, you know, right down the main stretch. Yeah, it's a totally different experience.
So, Brian, talking about this, where do you see these giant class drones is going? Racing?
ESPN? Like, where do you see them going in general?
Well, part of the problem that I saw with mini quads when they first started, ESPN doing the broadcast and everything, was kind of pretty much everything was post-production and there was no real live stuff. So when I started making these things, I was like, you know, what we need are gimbals. We need 2 gimbals. Let's put 3 gimbals on there, right? Well, obviously, we've only got so much bandwidth when it comes to video systems. But let's put it this way. Like take a stock car today. You go watch a NASCAR race or something along those lines, Indy, any of them. And as you, the spectator at home, is watching, there's somebody in a booth at that racetrack jumping from video signal to video signal to video signal because they're looking at all these different screens going, dude, that's a great shot. So while the announcers are announcing who's out in front and who's passing and so on and so forth, because they can actually see them, for the people at home and even people at the racetrack, they're jumping from one video to another, not the pilots, but these little tiny cameras that they put inside of the cars that are gimbaled. They can actually turn sideways and look at their competitor as their competitor passes them by. So my original vision for this was to actually have an onboard camera system that was specifically for the media. That way they had multiple camera angles, and I even actually wanted to do a 3-pilot system. You had a spotter per team, main pilot per team, and then a rear camera tech, essentially. So he's like running a rear turret, so he can communicate with the pilot up front and say, hey, number 3 is closing in on your left.
Yeah, I can see that.
So there would be a
really good,
pilot team rather than a single pilot. So it would be a 3-person team that would actually promote safety, because the line of sight pilot would actually be able to communicate properly, not just somebody go, hey, you're going to hit that guy.
Right, and then you have a secondary pilot that can see
together.
exactly how far away the other person is using the gimbal camera, and kind of have a secondary vantage point. That's actually a really fun idea.
And then all the media, when they show up, you've got spectators that are now involved in the sport, because the machines are large enough to carry multiple gimbals and multiple camera systems. And the media ones don't have to be the fastest. They could be Wi-Fi and high def. It doesn't make any difference at that point, because although it may be live, it doesn't have to be fast. The only person that needs a high-speed camera is just the main pilot. He's the only guy that needs that high-speed camera. The rest of them can have Wi-Fi.
So I just want to do a quick shout out to Francisco too, that just popped in the chat room. Hello, thank you for popping in. And another shout out to Scrat FPV. He was talking about in chat getting I think it was like a 480 build, something smaller, and he's getting longer carbon tube arms to build it out to a longer frame. So it's kind of the cool thing, just talking about what we've been talking about tonight, and in general showing that these machines are fun and cool. Like, people are starting to get into it. So yeah, just thank you all for tuning in and contributing to the show. And I love you too, Francisco. Thank you. So yeah, we're going off the spectator experience. And yeah, I see that as kind of one thing that I've been pushing, is the fact that you can actually have a camera on the ground that tracks the machines. And you can have multiple cameras in the air with the machines doing different types of videography work. You can have multiple camera angles on, maybe not live, but even for post-production, have it on different arms. You can have one facing on the back, on the front, a 360 camera that you could have on the drone in 4K if you do it right. So you could even adjust the angle in post, or have it so the audience with a 360 headset can just, use their phone and look around the actual drone race and get into the race themselves.
Totally agree. I mean, a software company could easily develop an online app, let's just say an X-Class app, where during the race they have a list of all the pilots on the side of the screen, and they can actually click Zoe, third camera, 360, and go like this, and they can actually spot Kevin Sellers in the air or something along those lines. Same concept.
That's kind of, and I guess I'm just going to put out there, but this is an app, that was an app idea and part of what I was trying to push to a few different people. But yeah, the idea of having like an app for the phone where you rebroadcast the FPV feed locally to the event area, so people with their phones can get on a local network, and they can then have a full FPV feed of the different pilots from their phone. And then if you pair that with giving out a Google Cardboard, you could give everyone a goggle experience for next to nothing.
Immersive experience.
Or have that as an upgrade on a ticket, tickets to the race are $5 with Google Cardboard 15, anything along those lines.
I mean, getting the spectator experience where it's both entertaining and fun for the audience, I think is doable. Like, the ideas are out there now to do it. It's just kind of putting all the pieces and getting them all together in their one place. And also kind of proving and showing investors that there's a market for it and that it's possible to do. A lot of and then I kind of said this on Ruben's podcast coming up on Sunday, but it really takes kind of getting the idea in front of somebody that has kind of the same crazy centric vision that you do, to kind of get behind you to support that idea, to bring it forward. There's tons of millionaires and billionaires, especially in the Silicon Valley, and really all it takes is one eccentric person to invest a couple $1 million to really just to see what happens, to make it into a really fun idea, And I'm not even trying to say making it profitable, but to show that it is a viable idea at a large scale, not just showing that these drones are capable of going around a course. And,
Right.
you
Yeah, I
know,
think at one point it was discussed that these big drones were going to race far away. A lot of people equate it to the pod race. I believe it was the very first Star Wars movie, Phantom Menace. I think
I
so.
think I know why that happened. So
I don't understand why 2.4 gigahertz or 1.3 flying 6 miles away is going to be
exciting and fun.
appealing.
Especially large scale. So this is something actually I have some kind of behind the scenes knowledge on. So large scale drone racing was really first kind of promoted, one by like Freedom Class, but also by Scott Refsland of the DSA. He was kind of promoting this idea with drone worlds with the 1000 plus class drone racing,
I think I
having
remember
them
that.
having them fly like down mountains and through these really exotic courses. He was kind of and I know kind of, he was expecting digital video systems to be good enough to do a race at that point in time with giant racing drones. And so his vision was for these drones to be able to travel out at least over a mile using digital video systems over the tropical islands for the race. The issue is that and not just being like a fast race, but endurance. So that's the other thing, is that we've, at least X Class, has been focusing on going fast. There's a whole different realm of giant scale racing of where you're doing long range endurance flying, or just endurance flying in general, where you're trying to go around a track as many times possible without stopping and having to pit stop and do all that good stuff. So, what Scott was thinking was having it kind of be more of an endurance race where you're flying over long distances and you come in for the, average pit stop, versus having, everything being on a smaller course. And, Drone Worlds turned into a, clusterfuck. First F1 of the episode. I think we're still good.
I caught that.
F1.
but seriously, like it was a mess, and unfortunately one of the things that suffered because of it was giant drone racing. It was kind of put to the wayside. Kevin Sellers was lucky enough to be able to do a demo with his machine. The whole racing aspect of the giant drones was basically canceled. And kind of puts me back to that, my favorite meme of Scott Refsland, Christmas is canceled. A lot of the ideas that he put out into the industry, like the giant drone racing down Hawaiian Hills, having a world-class event with, 35 countries holding their own qualifier events, like a lot of that stuff kind of got jumbled up with Drone Worlds, and a lot of the ideas he had, some of them really good, kind of got messed up because of DSA going down. But those ideas, I think some of them are coming back from the grave, so to speak, and we're picking the good ones up, and we're using the good ones. And those good ones, I really think, are giant drone racing. That's kind of thing. We saw X Class basically exist because we want it to happen. We want to see giant drone racing. We were tired of it being, second fiddle at like Drone Worlds and other events. And so we had to basically take it into our own hands. And part of that was, holding races. So,
hey guys, sorry, we have a question. Why are they called X Class?
That's actually a really good question. So there's a bit of history to that. So let's say Freedom Class was like kind of the original giant drone racing class. They had this idea of going 200 miles an hour and making it super fast and awesome. And then that didn't quite happen. They kind of had to go back to the drawing board a little bit, create a machine that was a little less powerful and a little more realistic. And that's kind of been the path they had to go down. But because of that, and this is, something I didn't know at the time, a lot of us were waiting for giant drone racing to happen. And so SuperClass was one of those efforts to try to make giant drone racing happen. And then in the Bay Area, Eli, Team Autodesk, they kind of started the X1 group, which was
Yeah, I
You know,
remember hearing about that. Yeah.
that was kind of, and that was largely promoted by Miguel at Tattoo. And so for a little short time in the Bay Area, we were really kind of pushing the X1 monk year, so to speak. And there was a couple little
Mhm.
groups, but nothing was really kind of coalescing around it. And Eli wasn't really doing much with the name or doing much of anything really as far as organization goes. So the X class group started, and the X class group actually wanted to shed the one monk year because eventually we wanted to go bigger. But right now we're doing the 1000 millimeter inaugural season. That's why it's kind of a separate thing. 1000 millimeter is going to change on that logo eventually, and we will have different leagues eventually, I believe, where we'll have like maybe even a spec league, you know, you have spec 1000 league and regular open class 1000 league, and then maybe the extreme open league, which is, bring anything that's really big over 1000 millimeters and bring it onto the track. But the idea was really just to kind of create an organization to promote drone racing. That was it. Just just something to help coalesce the community around to make it happen. And none of us, like Freedom Class may have been like I don't say that's a get rich quick scheme, but somebody that wanted to sell the idea to investors to get a lot of investor money to make it happen. We don't want to do that. We actually aren't even really actively looking for investors or big sponsors so much as we are just trying to flesh out the reality of hosting a large scale drone race and create the rules around that and create the community
Right.
to support it. So, we're trying to do the horse before the cart. And realistically, it's not none of us in X Class have any expectations that we're going to make any money from the organization. We don't we want to be self-supporting, and we're trying to bring on a few sponsors to make it self-supporting, at least for an event by event basis. But sustainability wise, we're trying to make it so it's a sustainable organization that can promote giant drone racing going forward and really kind of lay down the foundation for holding events. And in a lot of ways it kind of has, and it's helped coalesce. I mean, like, if in a weird way, if X Class, what we were doing at the time, if we didn't do that, I wouldn't know about SuperClass. We wouldn't be having this conversation right now. Like, there wouldn't be this whole like fervor of different people coming out of the woodwork saying, "Hey, this is also what I'm working on." And now we
Mhm.
have the chance to kind of coalesce all of our individual groups doing our own thing, but coalesce and say, hey, you know what? Giant drone racing is really cool, and we should support that in all of its forms. And that's kind of my ultimate goal is I don't care if, someone comes in and starts doing giant drone racing, just takes our rules and hosts a giant drone race. That's awesome. That supports giant drone racing and makes it a reality. And that's realistically what I think everyone at X Classes wants at the end of the day. We just want to see it happen. We want to see these giant machines go around a course really fast and crash and have people go, whoa, that was cool. Like, that is it.
So you've created a venue, a vessel, to appreciate your sport. And it's like creating car shows to show off your cars. I totally understand. I mean, it's a way of measuring. It's a way of participating together as a community, and it works out great. Our goal over here, like you said, the horse before the cart, is to basically create a product that doesn't exist, a proper racing drivetrain
Right.
for giant class machines, not just a repurposed one, an actual one. The way that I hate to ramble on about it, and I won't. But
No, we have
we
time.
we try we tried to instead of if the world was full of Mini Coopers, and everybody loved Mini Coopers, and everybody had Mini Coopers, and everybody was racing Mini Coopers, and the racing became so heated that everybody's putting four-cylinder engines on every tire, and they're all supercharged and nitrous, and they're doing 200 miles an hour with Mini Coopers around tracks, and it's absolutely awesome. And then all of a sudden, a semi-tractor trailer drives by for the very first time. Everybody goes, I want to race that. It's huge. Did you see that? It's awesome. I want to race it. Well, just taking the weight off the bed and painting it red doesn't make it a racer. The Mini Coopers have evolved now. There are aluminum frames with nitrous and aluminum block engines and so on and so forth. You can't just take a typical off-the-shelf Mini Cooper and compete. You need an actual racer. So our kind of goal was exactly like you said, kind of coming from the other end of things.
If you ever look at automotive racing, it all started from taking something that currently existed off the shelf, modifying it, and then making it race.
You are correct, absolutely correct. And I would, everyone started somewhere.
Like the motorcycle racing, and that's a really good example of it. That was started from GIs coming back from World War II with their motorcycles. And they're like,
right.
I love riding. This is an awesome bike. And they started racing them. And then people started taking weight off the bikes. So then people started making performance mods. But the thing that existed was the fact that there was people doing it. It wasn't that someone was like, hey, I'm going to make a really cool bike. It was like, hey, I'm racing. How do I make this thing go faster? And
I totally agree. And with the technology available to us today, from 3D printing to software that can actually do stress tests, I've seen how a lot of the propellers today, like the Racecraft props and some of the other ones, they actually can design them in CAD work and actually get a wattage output off of that per RPM and stuff like that. The technology that we have today is completely different than we had back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s when all of that first started. So we can, like Team Autodesk has gone to the other end of the spectrum. Instead of stuff that you can buy off the shelf, they're printing and making frames from scratch. So every team has their own approach to it. And Team Motor
that's also actually Team Autodesk's problem, is the fact they're trying to print their own frame. I was originally told Eli was going to have something to show over 3 months ago. And he doesn't, because they continually have issues trying to make something that's completely custom. So it's
my issue is because I travel and I never am home.
It's an interesting thing to get into, interesting problem. This is actually, I think, been a really illuminating discussion for if anything, like the fact that we've covered so much of just the nitty gritty of trying to get this stuff off the ground. Like literally, of trying to get it flying, of trying to make these things work. And like there's a lot of people out there that don't know what we're doing. Like they like what we've been able to talk about, from prop loading to the issues that both of us have had trying to get motor manufacturers on board, to our experiences. Like, some people might just be under the impression it's like really easy to do this. There's a lot of intricacies that go into it. And the battles that we both have had to endure during this, it's kind of an unknown. So this conversation, I think, has been really illuminating so far for everybody.
Well, we hope, anyway.
I hope.
May have just gone right over some people's heads.
Well, yeah, maybe. I mean,
if they're tuning in, they've got to be interested in it, right?
I hope. I mean, at least have some interest into, what's going on. But yeah, so with the giant, there we go. Grab that beast. Get us a close up. See, now that does it justice. See, you see that machine, you're like, damn.
We're waiting for that the whole show. Wow. Beast.
So Jeff really takes pride in his work on the graphics and the coating on the frames here. So all of that's done by hand. They're actually hand cut. Yeah, we could have CNC'd them out, but we elected to hand cut the early prototypes here in house. We do like the 3D printed camera brackets, antenna mounts, camera mounts, and everything else that we need in between. Check out the landing skids that we made.
Massive landing skids.
Nice. I'm wondering about the flight controller. I'm wondering about the flight controller.
Yeah, yes. We're running F3s on this. We're running the Dodos from Ready Made RC.
Right on.
Oh, I see.
Have you had any issues with vibrations getting into your flight controller and causing like the gyro to get all weird?
Nope.
Right on.
We do the ready-made RC Dodo does have the black box feature, and Jeff works really, really hard, and I appreciate all the work that he does here for the team. We're a great devil's advocate team. I might come up with the idea, and he'll just look at me like I'm crazy, or he'll have a solution, and I'm like, I don't think that's right. So we have a very interesting team dynamic here. But Jeff actually figured out, because there's not a lot of videos out there on how to read black box data and how to utilize that for proper tuning and things along those lines. Jeff is my software guy, tuner, finish builder, call him what you want. He's a great addition here. I don't even say addition because it's been up me and him the whole time.
I was going to say, you definitely need more than one person for a giant drone racing team. There's just way too much for one person to tackle. And when you hit a wall with a problem, you're going to hit your head against it, and you need someone to pat you on the back being, it's okay, we're going to figure it out. So that's really cool.
So yeah, Jeff's done a fantastic job of being able to take the time, learn the software, be able to read it, and use that information and data to produce a better flying machine. Honestly, the props and motors are spinning so slow on these machines, vibrations aren't an issue. I do realize that harmonics can always be there, balance issues can always be there, but these props are spinning 12 to 15,000 RPM, where our 4S 5-inch props are spinning somewhere around 40,000 RPM at full throttle. So,
and the main difference is that you can get up to higher RPM with a smaller prop because you don't have to worry about the RPM at the tip. And the tip speed is
once you go supersonic out here on the tip, it basically becomes an air dam. The amount of drag is unbelievable.
And there's going to be a massive amount of vibration. The prop has a chance to just explode from the forces that get introduced into it.
That's the key one. The prop will probably explode. That is the key one right there.
I'm hoping that we can. So this is kind of the funny thing. The 900 kV motors I have, if I can get a 15-inch prop up to full speed at 900 kV, the prop will go past Mach 1, which would put it past that speed. And that's kind of the thing, is that I don't want to go up to that. I want to go right up to that edge and probably under load have the prop going maybe like more closer to 750, 780 kV where it's under load. So, it's all about playing that, like dumping more amps to try to push a bigger prop to get more out of the stator. So the KV is a little different.
KV is a problem. KV, if you increase KV, you're actually creating a smaller magnetic field, which generates less torque, which will get your prop to a lower RPM, i.e. draw higher amps with less.
It's more inefficient, right? And the other thing with the 900 kV motor,
there's that sweet spot that you talk about. So
right, the other thing with the 900 kV motor was going down to like a 12-inch or a 13-inch prop and running 8 cell. So going up a cell, dropping down prop size. And it's that exponential thing. When you go down on prop size, you kind of have more room to play with, especially when you're going from like 15-inch to 12-inch. Like that's actually a massive difference. So in the air, it doesn't look much different at all. And I kind of equate it to going with a big tire car versus a small tire car. The gearing is different. Everything about them are different. Thank you, Francisco, for following. Sorry, just to interrupt. We just had a couple follows. Humboldt just followed too. Thank you, guys. That was awesome.
Zoe, check out them standoffs. Aren't they beautiful?
Damn. So wait, are those custom? Did you have to buy?
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, we had them made specifically for us. Jeff's are aluminum, mine are Delrin.
Well, so these guys are asking about LiPos. How many, which ones, batteries?
Yeah, what LiPos are you using? What's the power system on that setup?
Well, I'm kind of embarrassed about that. Yeah, our first generation, we actually ran batteries in parallel. Now we run them in series. So it's just like, really? You run that small of a battery? Well, before it was a big battery when it was running parallel. Now it's a tiny battery because it's running series.
So that's actually kind of what I was getting at with my X-Class rig. I'll be running 4 1300 mAh 6 cell tattoo R lines because I can get 120 amps per battery out of them, and that
We
allows.
explored that. We explored that early on, using one battery per motor to handle the amp draw. We actually, but the Generation One actually had bus bars. We actually had copper bus bars run
To
the
help.
length, and the batteries. The batteries
That's
would
actually
carry
kind
the
of
load
what I
on.
was saying is that one of the other ideas was to create a custom bar board to help balance out the batteries. Because once you go to
Yep.
individual batteries and you have one battery per motor, inherently the batteries are going to become unbalanced, and one battery is going to have more voltage than the other. The motors are going to start behaving a little weird. The flight controller is not going to like it. So then, yeah.
Yeah, giant bars of copper. So that was how we handled it early on, but it didn't really pan out. So
So yeah, I'm
ultimately went
approaching it a
back.
little different. I'm hoping that it'll work, but the problem that I keep hitting is that these bigger batteries are just it's a hard time to get a lot of amps out of them. I mean, when you're asking 400 amps out of a battery, you're asking for a lot of power.
Yeah,
And
the Viper originally pulled 460 amps at full throttle pinned to the floor.
that's actually about what I'm hitting and going for with my second generation X Class machine, which is the first generation custom, geared setup for what I'm trying to fly.
Right.
And you're talking about 20 pounds of thrust on your next motor. I to think of a quad that has 80 pounds of thrust flying in the air is fucking awesome. Second F
Yeah.
bomb.
Well,
It's
You're done.
this machine here is running 21 pounds of thrust on the motor pinned to the stand, so that's fully loaded. That's not unloaded in the air, and that's 84 total pounds of thrust, and it's pulling just over 200 amps.
damn. So do you see? So
Total.
so like
So
to get that legitimate, like to get a power system to support that in the air is going to be a challenge. I mean,
not anymore. We have no problems. We have no voltage sag in the air. We
so
had one. Now we don't.
because you're using more like littler batteries series together to produce the amount of amps that you need, right? Are you like, are you?
No, we're pulling less than half the amount of amps, and the batteries that we have are rated at 215 amps discharge rate. On the thrust
Oh,
stand, we're able to act. That's what I'm saying is with the thrust stand testing before with the 6S packs, we were getting about 6 to 8 volts drop during the amp. When it
okay,
pulls really hard, it would drop the voltage. Well, what does drop voltage do? You drop RPM like a
right,
rock.
right,
So even though you can sit there and say, okay, well, that should do 135 miles an hour, under load, the voltage drops so greatly, especially at 400 amps or whatever.
right.
It's never going to get there because the machine, it's not a constant power source, it's just a battery, and it gets pulled down.
Right.
So that was what we wanted to do here. We wanted to build a drivetrain that could literally move the machine as efficiently as like your drivetrain, but at half the amps, more efficiency, and basically build the machine to the battery. Yeah, pretty much. Build the machine because the batteries are the weakest spot. I
Yeah.
mean, we can build motors till we're blue in the face, but until they make a better battery, we're stuck at about 200 amps per battery. That's all we can do.
Right.
So running them in series or not, we're going to get 200 amps before batteries start popping and melting and whatnot. So yeah,
Right.
our weak spot's the battery. So we're basically stuck with building our machines to the battery. So
And
that was my goal here.
that's kind of the interesting thing is like we're at that phase right now with these giant drones that like the technological leaps are still available for us to still get up to that full potential from the battery technology. And, I think a lot of people are still trying to figure that out. Um, I know with like my machine, like realizing that I could pull 500 amps at full throttle, that was a wake up call to me because the batteries I was using were barely capable of delivering 200 amps at full throttle. And when I was doing my flight testing, I'm like, wait a second, this machine should be going faster. The prop sounds so much more pissed off when I'm running it on the prop stand on its own. What's going on here?
Mhm.
And I realized that it was the battery. I was hitting the battery constraints of what the battery was able to put out continuously with 4 motors running off of it. And a lot of the X-Class folk, a lot of people running these larger quads are running into that you cannot really get away with running a single battery on these machines because they're too power hungry. I know Jordan Temkin and Team Big Whoop, like they hit 100 plus miles an hour, and I think they're running 2 10,000 milliamp batteries in series for 12 cell, or not series. Yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah, series for 12.
Yeah, I was like, wait a second, no, I'm right on that one. So they're running them in series for 12 cell, and gave them, and they're running a 300 kV motor, and that got it up to running at like 600 kV on 6 cell, which is kind of what the F1000 is. So they're trying to get the same kind of performance in a different way, but in a lot of ways they're getting better performance because the amp draw, I think, is a little more efficient when you're giving it a higher voltage. But the thing is, they still had 2 massive batteries on their quadcopter that took a lot to run it. So finding that sweet spot of having enough battery and juice and be able to get around a course fast enough and still have enough juice to cross the finish line is kind of like the weird Goldilocks zone.
Yep. Yeah, I would feel safe with I would feel safe with my investment if the Viper was only in the air for 2.5 minutes. I would be okay with that.
Yeah, no, that's I mean, yeah.
But again, could I put a larger battery in there? Absolutely. Will it fit? No, because I built that one for those batteries. I'm like, crap. I can't put anything bigger in it because I built it for that original drivetrain. Like I told you, we built these so that they would accommodate, bigger motors later on down the line and other technology, so that we could grow with them. Well, my machine and Jeff's machine are shaped a little bit different, and my machine, I'm stuck with those original batteries. So,
like even for us on the West Coast, we have a really good relationship with Tattoo, but even to get Tattoo to make a new custom battery for an X-Class machine is difficult because it's a very high-end specialized battery. It's making it specifically for a single kind of type of machine, and there's not a large market for it, and the cost to develop something of that scale is expensive. So
see, we were also thinking further on down the line, a slot load style battery for a quick change for pit stops. The large 12S helis, the 700 class, 900 class collective pitch helis use a giant 12S battery. Yes, it's just 2 6S batteries. We all know that. It's nothing special. It's just shrink wrapped all into one shot. Well, because we have such power to weight ratio, we have such machines that we have the room to be able to have a slot load battery that you just put in 2 plugs and take right back off again. Was something we were kind of thinking along the lines of your pit stop and such. So you'll be able to land it on spot, on position, like in the pits, to be able to land on location. That's obviously pilot skill. To be able to slot load that battery within a certain amount of time, have that pilot take back off safely and complete the race. Right. So, and then of course figuring out how to do the pit laps and all that other kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's actually kind of something we're currently tackling in the internal group at X-Class, is like, how do we handle pit stops? Because we realize like doing a pit stop based race where you have multiple laps where you have to bring the craft in, swap out batteries and get it back up and going could be really visually interesting for spectators and the media, because you have that whole thing where you follow a quad in, you can connect the people to the craft, the team, the sponsors to the craft, and you have that whole, kind of really good connection to that. And then you have a race that's longer than 2.5 minutes. Like a race that's 2.5 minutes long is kind of boring. And when you have so much setup to do a race like that, you kind of want to last longer than 2 minutes. So
I totally agree.
Yeah, pit stops are the future of giant drone racing.
So in my opinion, a track should be made to involve 10 laps per charge, and the total race is 50 total laps. So each team is allowed 5 pit changes in any order. If they want to do it every 8 or whatever, and then try and push the last one to 13 laps and blow up the battery at the finish line or whatever. But I mean, that would be my way of looking at it from the numbers aspect of it. How many laps can you get out of a battery pack, or design the track based on, a known drivetrain, like say yours or Andrew's or Kevin Sellers or something like that. How many laps can you get on this track? Let's design a track that's only this big, oval track or a figure 8 or something along those lines, where he can get 10 laps, land, change the battery, and we're going to do 50 total laps.
Right.
And each team has to make 5 battery changes. Granted, that's not cheap to have 5 of those batteries on hand, but that would make for a very entertaining race for the spectators to see the teams yell at each other while changing 5 batteries per race. You're doing it wrong.
Well, I mean, that's kind of the thing. Like, once you start adding the team dynamic into it, you start adding the whole like camaraderie and the drama of the people element. And for like selling that to ESPN or any other, organization, like, hey, this is cooler because it's bigger. There's a team aspect. You can see it going around the course. They're louder, more mean machines. When they crash, it's more of a spectacle. Like it's one of those things that really kind of defines it.
Well, if you've got a 50-lap race and you've got 5 batteries, you're allowed 1 crash per race. And if you can recover it and still finish the race, you're not disqualified.
I think the biggest issue right now for the teams is affording 5, sets of batteries for a race like that.
Well, no. I'm just saying further on down the line. I'm not saying now, but
right. No,
that would be
100% with you on that. I don't think it's going to be now, but like, that's the thing, like showing up to a race, like we're like paying $200 a battery for some of these X-Class machines. And like,
yeah, I have 10 of them here.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's not a cheap investment. And so when you're talking
and
about,
I gotta get 2 more before next weekend.
Oh, jeez. Uh-oh. Ruh-roh raggy. Okay, sorry everybody about that. Apparently we had a hiccup on my end. For some reason, my internet dropped out. Maybe someone DOSed me. I don't know. But yeah, so we're back. I will have to edit that little part of the stream and make that all work for us. But now that we're back, I kind of want to say a few more things before we go, because we are running on like 2 hours already.
Sorry.
No, don't be.
Lots of data over here.
It's a great chat. I think we've learned a lot. I think we've had a lot of back and forth. I think we cleared the air a bit. We're all kind of more on the same page. I know more what X-Class and a SuperClass are doing independently, more how we might be able to work together in the future. So I am really glad we did this, because, I mean, I wanted people to know more about what you were doing with SuperClass and your giant drones, because they look sexy as hell.
Yeah,
we tried. That's all Jeff's fault, actually.
So, yeah, so I want to give one last shout out. What sponsors do you have? Anybody you want to give a shout out to, Brian?
Well, we got a lot of local manufacturers here that have helped us out. Aerospace facilities, McKay Tool has helped us out. Trifecta, way out west. Bare Knuckle Choppers. I know that doesn't sound aerospace, but he does a lot of great stuff out there. And Precision Machine Tool Service. Ready Made RC has helped us out great with racing components, such as our flags and stuff that you'll see in our.
Yeah, I gotta give a lot of love to them.
And Cobra
is great.
Yeah, and Cobra has really stepped in and helped us out with some of our electronics that we had problems with. So, I mean, we've got a lot of sponsors already. I think we're like at 8 that have financially contributed. But, it's not huge amounts. It's a little here, it's a little there. But, I mean, they're not going to invest tens of thousands of dollars until they start seeing some product. And that's kind of where I'm at out here in the Midwest, trying to, more sponsors, but to network, to be able to find people that can help us prototype, solve problems, and get answers from from software to hardware to performance.
Right
And
on.
that's what we're trying to do here with SuperClass. We're not trying to generate an entire new format of racing. That wasn't an idea early on. X-Class stepped in and took that load off of us and allowed me to spend more time designing and building and prototyping rather than marketing and being on social media.
Like, we
So
hate
big
that
shout out
shit.
to you
Like,
guys for.
we really don't like having to do that shit. Like, we feel like we have a burden on our shoulders that we have to bear, and like, it's just one more thing that we all have to like do. So yeah, I
I
appreciate.
travel for a living and I deal with people every day, all day. The last thing I want to do is make that my hobby. So my hobby with over 250 mini builds underneath my belt. I know that sounds incredible, but the most I ever finished was about 12 in a week. I took an actual week off work to get caught up on orders back then. And now we're just concentrating on SuperClass. So it's kind of been a breath of fresh air, but at the same time, a whole new ball game and a whole new set of headaches. Jeff has been extraordinarily patient with me and the machines. I think we finally pressed it over the top, and there's light at the end of the tunnel for us. We need just another little nugget of information, and we're going to really push the envelope on the next set. So.
Right on. I'm really looking forward to seeing what you've got cooking and what comes next. So where can people follow you?
Well, right now we've got 2 pages set up on Facebook, one for Team Motor Nuts, and then, of course, the other one for the SuperClass machines. You can see flights and whatnot there, and keep up with us, the pilots, over on the pilot page. Ask questions, like our page, and follow, because we've got videos probably coming in about 2 weeks that are going to be jaw-dropping. We've actually got custom music being made here locally by some fantastic artists for our next videos, and sky's the limit over here. Thanks
you hear
to
that, Chris
X-Class.
Ballard? Like, hear that, Chris Ballard? SuperClass is gonna put you on blast. What they got working. You better have something big.
Well, we're just trying to solve problems and engineer the machines. We're not trying to. Okay, yes, we are quietly trying to take over the world.
Aren't we all? Aren't we all?
Let's do it!
And
he found it. Oh my God, he found
it. Thank you so much. Let's get on to.
Come true! Just do it!
Just do it. Just do it. Just build it. Just make them big, make them fast, and make them loud. Just do it.
We've got it.
Right on. So upcoming on the next episode, we have, I think, a couple of special guests. Justin Haggerty of IDRA, the International Drone Racing Association, will be in the house talking to us about some of his upcoming events. One of them, I think, is going to be on ESPN. He might have a series of events coming to ESPN. I want to get the lowdown on that because I know a lot of people are interested in what's going on and how to get in on that and what's, to expect from those races going forward. And make sure you check out SuperClass FPV Racing on Facebook. Make sure you check out Team Rotor Nuts on Facebook, because we want to support giant drone racing. If you love giant drone racing, then you've got to support everybody. It's a community. It takes a village. And yeah, make sure you support the show, Dronelicious.show. As the website is finally kind of coming together. It looks good. We are also now on iTunes. You can listen to the show on your car ride when you're, bored and don't have anything else to do. So check out Dronelicious Show on iTunes, and like the Facebook page. Thank you all for liking that Facebook page, because we got over to 100 likes in about a day, and that was awesome to see.
Also, guys, we're gonna have contests every Tuesdays, so don't miss them. And let us know what else you would like us to do, who else you would like us to invite, or companies, or everyone. You just can write us at the chat or Facebook, everything you want to see on the show.
And thank you all for following. I just saw a bunch of follows there. That was really, really cool. And this is kind of the home on twitch.tv of Dronelicious. It's a live show without you being here, a part of the live show. it wouldn't be much of a live show. And I love the fact we can interact with the audience and kind of have a conversation while we're doing the show. So thank you all for being a part of that. That's super awesome. And yeah, so check out the next episode, Tuesday coming up. We'll have IDRA. We might have a couple people from X Class on too. And Thursday, I think we may have Angela back on to talk about some really cool stuff we were going to talk about today. So yeah, and the contest reminder, yeah. So yeah, thank you all for watching. We got through the second episode with only one technical issue this time. Yay.
And 2 F-bombs.
Check you all next time, and thank you for watching.
The taste,